Hello there, it's great to have you within the four walls on TV 360 Nigeria, the first and only all-encompassing educational program. I'm Mr. Adolf, the teacher, and this is what I have on the gripboard. The classwork has what is almost a book review, but I'll be taking you on another path this time with a poem by Ken Saro-Wiwa, followed by a preface to the topic of this episode, Education Consultancy in Nigeria, that drives us into the examination where a special guest will be joining me to discuss the issue. Thereafter, we'll set the grading before the assignment. Now let's see what's happening latest on education. The Lagos State government has appealed to all stakeholders in the contentious issue of wearing hijab in public schools to maintain peace, law, and order, while the Supreme Court's ruling on the matter is being awaited in the spirit of the rule of law. This follows a protest by members of the Muslim Students Society of Nigeria Lagos unit against the victimization of secondary school students using hijab by principals at the Lagos State House at Lausa Ikeja over the weekend. Meanwhile, the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Dr. Idiat Orunloti Adebule, says the government is working assiduously to resolve the matter. She said that in the interim, the principal of the school has been redeployed to douse the tension around that situation. But the issue is, if students are not allowed to wear hijab according to school policy, according to education policy, why should this rise again? And why would the Muslim body of Lagos State continue with this kind of protest, especially when it's not yet a law? There's no law to support that within our educational system. I will take a short break. When I come back, I'll be doing what's almost a book review. This time, I told you, Ken Saro-Wiwa will be taking the center stage. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Ken Saro-Wiwa, he was killed in the year 1995 by the military government then because of his so much activities around what I would call protesting and speaking out for his people, the Ogoni land, due to the oil spillage and all of that. So he was tried, he was convicted by the military government under what was set up specially by that government. So I stumbled on something on YouTube, a woman who was reading out a poem by Ken Saro-Wiwa, and I said, this is beautiful. Although she was reading it for her German friends who were in prison at the moment, they were journalists. So while I was listening to that poetry, I said, this was written 25 years ago and nobody paid attention to that. Now, this is what the poem is. It is not the leaking roof, nor the singing mosquitoes in the damp, wretched cell. It is not the clank of key as the warden locks you in. It is not the measly ration, unfit for beast or man, nor yet the emptiness of day dipping into the blankness of night. It is not, it is not, it is not. It is lies that have drummed into your ears for generations. It is the security agents running amok, executing callous, calamitous orders in the exchange for a wretched meal a day. The magistrate writing into her book a punishment she knows is undeserved, the moral decrepitude, the mental ineptitude, the meat of dictators, cowardice masking as obedience, lurking in our denigrated souls. It is fear damping trousers that we dare not wash. It is this, it is this, it is this, dear friend, turns our free world into a dreary prison. While I was going through that online, I read so much again about Ken Saro-Wiwa and the situation that happened in that 1995. And this poem is so, so dear to my heart. And I want my students in class also to review this poem sometime in future. So, coming to the topic of the show today, I would say literally that education consultancy, when you hear that word, what would come in your mind is, okay, it's about consulting some experts on how to run schools or anything like that. So I did a little background study of the roles of education consultants. At least these 5 functions are quite fascinating, and here they are. Number 1, they help to develop positive school environment for learners. Number 2, they examine and evaluate emotional, behavioral, and learning aspects of students in order to design educational programs that are suitable for each group or level. Number 3, they maintain and manage records, reports, and documentation. Number 4, they create and supervise accurate education class timetable. Then finally, they assist and support functionalities of planning, implementation, assessment, and school improvement processes. To further discuss this with me, I have Temitope Ogun, education consultant in Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me. The name is Temitope Oguniyi.
Oguniyi?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
I understand that you are a teacher first and foremost.
Oh, yes. That's where the journey started.
Then what drove you into education consultancy?
Okay, so interestingly, I'd been in the educational sector for about 10 years within the office and then in the classroom. And I would always question what was going on. Not because there was a problem, but I just wanted to find out more about what it was that I was doing. And then it was that curiosity that led me into, you know what? I think when I leave class, I want to help schools. And that's where the journey began. So when I left class, I went to work with a consultant for about 2 years so that I would understand what the business aspect was. And then I launched out.
I understand that as a working citizen, there is need for you to always improve your output and all of that. Is it about the money? Because I understand that education consultants are very expensive in Nigeria. Wow. Anywhere in the world, exactly.
Okay, so for me, the word expensive is relative. For every time I hear something is expensive, I know there are people that can afford it. So am I speaking to my target? If what I have to offer you is too expensive, then maybe I wasn't sent to you. Not because I don't want to help you, but then because I know what it is that I have to offer.
Okay.
I would rather you spend whatever it is that you think is expensive on your business, so that when you're looking back another 10, 15 years, it's well worth the while. So expensive for me is relative.
All right, let's go into what consulting in education is all about. I just discovered that there are several aspects to it.
Yes.
The aspect of those who take care of the staff or the management of school curriculum and all of that. Where do you fall into, first and foremost?
Okay, so just like you mentioned, you found out about 5 different things, and not one person will be able to do all of that.
Really?
It's going to be a work that has to do with a team. So if my organization comes to you, for instance, I, as one member of the team, might be an expert in one aspect.
Okay.
And then I would have team members who would also work on other aspects. So for instance, if you consult my organization, I am not into curriculum development, but if it's part of the package, we will deliver. So I'm just saying this as an organization. Yes, we would look at what it is that you want, because there are no 2 schools that even have the same needs.
All right.
So yes, where I fall, I usually tell people that what I deal with is the software of education. You know, just like a system has the software and the hardware, I'm more concerned about the social and emotional well-being of children and their teachers. So for me, I want to find out how you are. I remember when I was in class, I still teach, by the way, but not full time.
Okay.
And I would ask my pupils and my students, how are you? They got so used to that question because they knew that anytime I asked, how are you, I wasn't expecting the regular fine, because that's what everybody would say. But then if you're not fine, why would you tell me you're fine? So my students already knew that if she's asking how are you, she wants to know. So you would hear, I'm hungry, I'm sleepy. I was really concerned about their well-being, because I realized that we have many educators who are disconnected. So subject matter wise, they're experts. They're the sages on the stage.
Okay.
Wake them up from sleep, they will pour it out, formula, whatever it is. But when it now comes to connecting with the children, there were issues. So for me, that was a major deal. And I began my research, and that was when I stumbled, this was about, I think, 6, 7 years ago, on what social and emotional intelligence was. And for me, that's what it is. Social and emotional intelligence.
How can is it easy for me to link you to a normal school counselor? Do you do the same job?
Okay, so interestingly, counseling is also part of what I do. Now, for you to be able to work with a team, if you're my client and you want me to work with your school,
yes,
of course there will be the brief, and I would want to understand what exactly it is you expect from me. And then I would go and work on that, and then we would agree on the terms and whatever it is you want. Usually I would say I would like to work with a school for maybe a whole session. Okay. And then when we're done, when I'm done with the transitioning and giving you your reports, it's up to you if you want me to come back. But I would like to say that in the space of that one session, I would have been able to work with your team, that's your management, your teachers, in a way where they can run even without you, the owner, so that they're not dependent on. I remember when I started out, even as a teacher, it was more or less like we did what they wanted us to do. So
aren't you supposed to do what you're needed to do?
Okay, so interestingly, so management will come and say this is what is expected. And then I found out that many people rarely questioned. Not questioning for the sake of being notorious, but questioning for wanting to find out, why are we doing this? And that's why for me, I know that Nigeria is not where we should be because of what is happening in the classrooms. Even our teachers, who are meant to be the facilitators of knowledge, are not asking questions. So we're doing things that we've been doing 20 years ago, the same way, and we're expecting a different result.
Okay, before we go on a break, I want to quickly ask you, how do you get into the minds of teachers? Say, for example, you're meeting a teacher or group of teachers that have been teaching for the past 20 years with so much experiences. How would you begin with such level of teachers?
Okay, so one thing I didn't say when you introduced me, so everybody calls me the happy teacher.
Happy teacher.
Yes, that's my name. And I am big on you being happy with what you're doing and about what you're doing. Why would a grumpy teacher be teaching my child? So if I have a teacher that has been teaching for 20 years, and interestingly, there's a story I remember. I had a former colleague who, one of these days, because I question a lot, I question everything. Why do we breathe? Why can't we see? I question everything. So I just say, why are you teaching? And then she goes, why am I teaching? And she says she has never gotten to ask herself that question, talk less of answering it. And then it also made me more curious. So I began asking a lot of my colleagues, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? Today, I think I have, if I clearly check, I think I have about 1,000, not Googled, real life answers from teachers who are teaching in Nigeria, saying, okay, I'm doing it because I'm passionate. I'm doing it because I love it. I love children. And I say, okay, if you go to the hospital and you see a doctor that is passionate but is not skilled, would you be comfortable with that doctor treating you? So we have many teachers who are very passionate but not skilled.
Okay, talking about comfortable that you just mentioned, when we come back after this break, I want to know how comfortable are you with working with government in Nigeria. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Tell me, Tokwe, I want to ask how comfortable you will be working with the Nigerian government if you're hired.
So, interestingly, I'm somebody who's big on partnerships. At the moment, I'm actually even in partnership with an organization headquartered in Canada, and we want to train 1 million teachers in sub-Saharan Africa. If government wants us on board, why not? Because for me, it's now not even, I know because I've always been with the private sector, there's always this thing about the private sector is different from the public sector.
I'm grateful you know where I'm headed.
Yes, there's always that debate about how teachers in the private sector don't know what's going on because the ones in the public sector are the real teachers. And then the one in the private sector will look at the ones in the public sector and say, look, we're here because you guys weren't doing what you were meant to do well. Because if you remember the no, I won't say if you remember. If I remember when I started this journey, I did a research and I found out that the reason why we have many private schools today was because government wasn't doing what they were meant to do well enough. So this is not me saying that they're not trying, because we even have many international organizations that give them aid and then help out and even get consultants to work with them.
Okay.
So it's not that they're not doing what they should be doing, but not well enough. Quote me.
All right. The only question that is remaining right now is education consultancy in Nigeria.
Yes.
I don't know where this is heading at the
Yes.
moment, but it is about the big schools hiring education consultants to help manage their school, manage their businesses. But then, how about the smaller schools? I'm still talking about the private schools that are not able to hire education consultants. Generally, it is believed that you are expensive, no matter how you try to deny it. How much would you charge for a year?
So that is also relative. So I work with different schools, and I would actually also look at your budget. I would look at what you have, and then we'll be able to check the boxes and say for what it is that you want, we'll be able to do this and do that. Now, instead of me giving you my hours, why don't I work on your teachers? And that's why I talked about I don't have to spend more than a year with you, because whatever it is that I'm doing, I've been able to replicate so that your system can run on autopilot. And then so that even if a new person comes in, the structure, the template, the model, everything is in place. And then the person picks it up, there's the onboarding, and then they run with it. So it's not, you remember I said something about being a sage on the stage.
Yes.
Nowadays, what educators, consultants, and teachers are meant to be doing should be facilitators of knowledge. So rather than me being the one that knows it, because that's the reason why I'm even charging you what I'm charging you that is expensive, I would rather do what is called maybe like a train the trainers, where I would pour myself into you and then you would now be able to work with even other teachers. For me, I also believe in mentoring and coaching. So if I come into your system, I want to meet management. I want to have an idea of what's going on in their heads. Why did you set up the school? So even for the owner, why are you doing what you're doing? Because if you think about every school, they can't even meet every need. So I probably want to focus on IT because this is the 21st century. And then we still have some schools who are not even IT compliant. So do I want to come into your school and say that, you know what, we want to move you from here to there? Or do I want to come into your school and say that let's tweak what it is you have? As a consultant, I'm not coming in to change what it is you're doing, but then I'm coming in and I'm saying, okay, this is where we are and this is where we want to get to, and then we'll work together.
All right. So are you limited to only the nursery, primary, secondary school?
Okay, so some schools have all of them at the moment. There's a school that has just the nursery, primary, and she said it's a 27-year-old school, and she says for years people have been asking her to start a secondary school, but that's not for her. Meanwhile, you would have some schools that will have the nursery, primary, secondary, and probably even go on to have maybe like a sixth form college. It all depends on whoever the owner or the management of the school is. Like I said, no two schools are the same. And for anybody who says that consultants are expensive, can I share? I love telling stories.
Okay.
So a very short
I'm
one.
ready.
A very short one. There was this, and I'm sure, I have a feeling you'd have heard about it before. And it was about this ship repair man so there were these ship owners, and then all of a sudden the ship wasn't working anymore. And then they got this ship repair man to come in. Very old man who had been doing this for a long time. So safe to say that like a consultant who is now an expert in what he or she has been doing.
Okay.
So this man comes in and then he looks at the engine. And after a while, the owners of the ship are watching him and they're like, what's going on? What's that thing that is wrong? How come we didn't get to know what it was? Now, after a while, this old man brings out his tool bag, brings out this hammer from his tool bag and then hits a knob, and then the engine comes up. And then everybody was like, wow, how is that? And we've been battling with this thing for a very long time. 1 week after, he sends the bill to them and he's charging them $10,000. And then they go, what? We were there when you hit it. It was just, the heating. And then they said to him, you know what? Can you break this bill down? Let's see what exactly it is you're charging us for. We were there. It's not like you bought something new. And he said, $2 for hitting the hammer and $9,998 for knowing where to hit. I say this because a consultant will come in with that expertise, knowing where the issues are, and will help you. So, the end of my story.
The end of your story just got me dumbfounded, because I was actually thinking of how to, let you shoot yourself on the legs. But
with this, what did I do?
Intellectual property is the most expensive thing in the world, and I support that.
Yes, I was going to say, in this climb, to pay for services is hard, because people are wondering, what exactly is he doing? What exactly is she doing?
Sometimes it looks like I should ask the question when I see education consultants speaking and, bringing things into school and all of that. It looks like, what are they actually doing? But then, with you, I think it's so clear right now. So we're going to do the grading. I always do the grading A, C, and F. A is for excellent, C is for fair, then F is terrible. So we're going to grade the government of Nigeria. What do you think the government deserve at this moment when it comes to promoting education in Nigeria? A,
C, and F. Okay, not to overthink anything, I'll give them a C. And I say this because when I started this journey as a consultant, I do a lot of networking, and I have met incredible people who are working in their own little ways to change the face of education. So we're not even waiting for government anymore. We would work with them, but we're saying, you know what? If it's just you working with one school and another you is working with another school, if I'm able to replicate myself and then we work with more schools, we will get there. It will take a while, but we will get there.
How would you grade your colleagues?
I was going to finish by saying that I'm giving them a C, because, and that's why I mentioned I've met people. Most of us are actually a product of this government schools that we're, so to say, wanting to condemn.
Okay.
So I won't give them an F. I will say we're not there yet. Whatever it is they're doing, they have to up their ante. They have to up their game. If government is spending just 7.7% thereabout on education, when we have, I think, when I checked last, I think about 600 and something billion, as opposed to 500 and something trillion that they have. When you talked about mindset of teachers who have been in the system for 20 years, I would repeat that we're where we are today in Nigeria and in Africa because of our mindset. When people begin to see things differently from different perspectives, knowing that whatever it is that is happening in class. So as a teacher, my pupils and my students are a reflection of me. Now, if I haven't worked on myself, continuous professional development, wanting to learn, unlearn, and relearn, I'm going to keep feeding them whatever it was that I knew 20 years ago. Meanwhile, the world is not waiting.
Of course.
My daughters have even told me, okay, so I have two daughters. One of them told me once that she wanted to drop out. And I'm like, why? She says, 90% of what they're teaching us is not going to be relevant. And I'm like, okay, come to think of it. Are schools preparing children for the work of the future and the future of work? Or are we just taking them through, give it to me? There's this thing we used to say, I don't know if you know, lo cram, lo pol, lo forget, where it's time for exam.
How can I know? But
exactly.
At this moment, I'd like to have you grade your colleagues, the consultants.
Okay, so for government, it's C.
Your colleagues, especially for focusing on Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, the major cities.
Okay,
leaving out
so interestingly, this topic came out. We're talking about this, myself and a few colleagues. We're talking about how Lagos, Abuja, and all these areas are saturated, and we wanted to begin to go out. So I actually even have some colleagues who are doing what is called an invasion. Okay, I keep going on and on. I would say for those that I have worked with, I'll give them an A.
Because you're part of that system.
Yes, because I know, yes.
Have you moved out of Lagos at all?
Oh, yes, but more in Lagos, but yes. Yes, I have.
I don't know why you give yourself A. Thank
I
you
just shot
so
myself
much.
in the leg. Okay.
Thank you so much, Temitope Oguniyi,
Yes.
for being here, sharing the ideas,
Thank you
sharing
for
so much
having me.
information on education consultancy in Nigeria. So, for the assignment, do you think education consultancy is so relevant in Nigeria? Share your answer with us on Facebook, 4walls on Facebook. Just drop your answer and we will get it. It's been a wonderful time discussing with this special expert in education consultancy in Nigeria. Until we come your way next time, God bless you. Bye-bye.